Welcome to Clotheshorse, the podcast that, yes, has not taken a break or gotten some rest after the Jamboree, so please stop asking because it kind of makes me feel embarrassed. No rest for the working class, as you know. But fortunately, I am still riding high on a few things coming out of the Jamboree. One is that I got to spend so much time IRL with rad members of our community. Seriously, I'm still kind of tired 2 weeks later, kind of still catching up on every aspect of my life right now, but my heart and brain are just exploding with joy after spending 2 days with members of the slow fashion community from all over the United States. How amazing is that? Number two, I'm feeling super proud that I nailed the introduction to the live episode without looking at my note cards. You know, I'm used to being able to sit behind a desk and look at a whole bunch of notes while I speak. So that feels like a major accomplishment to me. And the teacher whose name I cannot remember, who taught my speech class in 10th grade, is probably really proud of me somewhere. And number three, this is the biggest one really for me. It's just like, what a cool group of people the Jamboree was. There were so many different kinds of people of all ages with uniquely different style and uniquely different life experience. And I kept looking around and thinking, yes, this is what slow fashion is. It was amazing. And I'm just so glad that it happened. I'm your host, Amanda, and this is episode 210. This week, you're going to meet Corinne Loperfido, a social practice artist based in Texas. We're going to talk about so many things slow fashion related, including why the merch industrial complex is a problem and what a better future for merch could look like. Corinne's going to share some advice for starting your own journey into slow fashion. And she's going to explain the Slow Fashion Center for Degrowth. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, you're going to learn all about it. And hopefully you will be inspired to start your own Slow Fashion Center for Degrowth in your community. Before that, I thought we would take a few minutes to sort of recap the Clotheshorse Jamboree, which happened just 2 weeks ago here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. You know, for 2 days, we hung out, we did fun activities, we learned a lot of new stuff, and we made some new friends. And guess what? It was fucking amazing. We did so much stuff. We learned how to be a better thrifter and how to talk to others about slow fashion in 2 presentations I led with snazzy graphics and lots of great conversations. We played Brenda, which is slow fashion trivia bingo, a game I like to think I invented, but possibly didn't. And I hope to play it again sometime soon. And everybody won fabulous thrifted Pennsylvania souvenirs. I don't know who won the horseshoes with the horse photos, but they were made by my 10-year-old Amish neighbor, Milan, who likes to come by and sell me his crafts sometimes. So I hope whoever got those hung them in a place of honor. I will say the thing about Brenda, the slow fashion trivia bingo, is that one was probably the most surprising amount of work because I thought, as I started, how long could it take to make a bingo game with trivia questions? Oh, you know, just a couple months of researching stuff every day and writing out the clues. And then this is no joke. There's really an app for everything out there. I had to buy a 1-month subscription to this service that like randomizes the bingo cards for you. So you like design them and then it plugs in the answers in different places on all the different cards. So I had to come up with like 100 different answers for the card. And then it turned it into like, I don't know, 150 cards for me. It's seriously like bingo, way more complicated than you think. Hats off to all the bingo runners in the world. What else? We made cool stuff in the Ultimate Secondhand Craft Supply Challenge. I was nervous about this, that people would not like it, but it was such a success and people made the coolest stuff. Casey did an amazing job organizing the supplies and helping people find their medium. We kind of sent everyone over in small groups so she could give them a tour of what we had and help them find things and give them suggestions. And I'm telling you, people had 2 hours to craft and they made amazing things. And the prizes for the craft challenge were thrifted vintage craft kits, lots of latch hook, embroidery, things like that. We also ate incredible local food put together by Corey, including a lot of stuff cooked with love by Corey. And I contributed some pickles that were grown in my garden and then pickled by me. And trust me, I have like 40 more jars of them in my basement. I have plenty to get through the winter. But, how many events do you go to like that where there are homemade pickles? And how many podcasters are making pickles for their community? Just saying. Also, pickles are pretty good. I've been pickling everything in my house. I don't want to talk about myself too much and make you bored, but let me tell you, pickling is really hard work when you do it right, and you have to can it to last, in the basement for a long time unrefrigerated. You have to use this big, huge pot of boiling water. It's arduous in the summer days. But man, there is something so instant gratification and satisfying about looking at your counter and saying like, look at all those jars of food that I just made. I don't know. It feels good. What else did we do? We watched an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine about unionization and labor rights. And then we had a great conversation afterwards led by Christine of Lady Hog Vintage. We even had popcorn and snacks during that. I managed to thrift a big old popcorn machine. It felt very legit and like we were practically in movie theater. Please call me when movie theaters are just showing episodes of Deep Space Nine. I'll go. What else? We talked about understanding our own personal style and embracing it as a key part of the slow fashion way of life. And then we did a very relaxing collage session, which people continue to collage for hours afterwards through lunch and even at the end of the day. So it was fun that we just got to sit around and cut things out of magazines and paste them. I mean, I don't know. We don't get to do that enough as adults. Dustin and his best friend Brad helped everyone make their own one-of-a-kind merch with Clotheshorse iron-on transfers. We had our heat press that we found on Facebook Marketplace. We had a wide array of different secondhand garments to iron on, and everybody made some really cool stuff, and it was wild to see everyone wearing it the next day. We ended the whole thing. I mean, this was so much. I can't believe we did all this stuff in just 48 hours, but we ended it all with the first ever live before a studio audience episode of Clotheshorse, which you all heard last week. People applauded for me, and it was wild. I literally started tearing up when I walked out onto stage to that applause, and I am feeling myself tearing up right now even as I talk about it. And I will tell you, I ugly cried when I heard it while I was editing that episode. It's wow, like what a life-changing moment for me as someone who has always felt not good enough and still feels like most people on the internet hate me, to have people there excited to hear what I have to say, so excited that they applauded for me. I mean, sorry, I'm getting like kind of misty right now thinking about it. It was amazing. Is that why people are in bands? So people applaud for them? I don't know. I get it now. What else? There was the fruit wall. That took about 6 months to assemble, including tracking down all of that thrifted fruit. At one of the thrift stores I go to pretty regularly, I was there once again buying an entire basket of artificial fruit. And I said to the woman ringing me up, I said like, hey, this probably seems weird that I'm buying all this artificial fruit, but I'm making a whole wall out of it for an event. And she said, I'm really glad that you're buying it because we get so much of this fruit and no one ever buys it. And in a week, that bin where you found all this is going to be full again. So come back and buy some more. So I'm actually thinking that maybe the fruit wall needs to be even bigger for the future. I need to liberate more artificial fruit from the thrift stores and its inevitable end in, a landfill. So I'm just thinking about more uses for fruit. Another thing I just want to call out is that everything we used, from dishes to utensils to craft supplies to the game pieces for Brenda to the prizes, all of it was secondhand. It was very important to me that, we proved that events could be less wasteful. And I will tell you so much more about all of that in the next episode of Clotheshorse, which will be about thrifting in honor of Secondhand September. And we'll get that episode started just talking about all the secondhand stuff that we used at the Jamboree and how it came together and how maybe you could translate that to your own life. So I thought we could listen to some attendees share their experience at the Jamboree. I recorded these using my portable recording device while everyone was crafting, and you can hear how much fun everybody is having and the background. In fact, there is some background noise, which by now, hopefully Dustin has minimized with the magic of technology. But if background noise is a sensory no-no for you, go ahead and fast forward about 5 minutes. You can just skip the whole thing. The last little part of this roundup of attendee comments is from Itoha, who was kind enough to send her thoughts afterwards. So she's going to sound nice and smooth in comparison to everyone else.
Hi, I'm Leela Rosen, and I live in Brooklyn, New York. And in terms of what we've done at the Clotheshorse Jamboree, it's been a really great opportunity to build relationships and be in community with other slow fashion-minded people, which has been great. It's definitely inspired me to learn how to sew, as well as get back into my really silly late 90s craft era. And I think the best thing we've done so far was Sustainable Bingo, which was a blast.
Okay, good. Yes. Yeah. Wait, did you win? Were you a winner? What was your prize?
Okay, the prize was excellent. It was like an Amish doll sewing kit, which I gave to Jesse. And then the other prize were some horse socks, which I'm from Texas. I'm kind of a horse girl, but I don't own any horse socks, so I was like very thrilled.
I'm Hannah. I live in North New Jersey. Probably the most important thing I'm taking away, there's a lot of things that I'm going to try and implement, but I think community is the one goal that I have for myself. It's hard to put yourself out there sometimes, and sometimes I think just doing my small part is going to make enough of an impact, but realizing that community is what's going to make the biggest change motivates me to put myself out there in ways that my introverted self doesn't normally want to do. But I'm realizing that it's very important, and like even just the impact with my friends and family could make astronomical impacts down the road. I mean, I hate to sound like boring, but I genuinely just love listening to the things that you have to share and taking notes so I can learn from them later. That's probably not like a fun thing, but I would say the second most fun thing, and not even hands-on, was I really enjoyed the heat press machine and like watching you take a shirt that I brought from my house and like bring it to life again. Like, that was a super fun element to add something new to a piece of clothing I already had.
Hi, I'm Marco from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm here at the Clotheshorse Jamboree as a part of my role as a community arts educator. I run an environmental arts program for high schoolers for a nonprofit called Artworks from Milwaukee. And I think my biggest takeaway here, because while sustainability is in the arts is definitely a thing that I am a communicator of and aware of, fashion in particular is not an area of expertise for me. I'm an avid thrifter, so I don't really know what's going on outside of that realm. So largest takeaways were the terrifying scale at which we consume things. Like, I knew it was bad, like compared to Amazon and everything else, but good golly, some of those numbers are horrifying. But on the brighter end, I think there's a wonderfully eclectic and diverse cast of people here. It's been wonderful meeting everybody from all sorts of walks of life and getting to know people from outside of my field in particular. And other favorite things, we use Star Trek to talk about labor unions. I could not be among my weirdos any more than we are right now.
I'm Stacy from Rainbow Vintage. So the last 8 years have been such a fucking downer. Like, it's been one bad thing after another, and people have been just doubling down all around, like across society, no matter their faction or opinions or whatever. I just see worse and worse takes from everyone, and it has like eaten away most of my hope. And I felt better this morning after the first day of the Jamboree than I have in years.
Hello, I'm Sarah Grossman from Burn Collective, and I want to tell you about the things that Amanda has inspired me to do over the many years I've been listening to Clotheshorse. I have fixed my shoes, my sandals. I put in new footbeds at the cobbler. I have fixed jewelry, costume jewelry, no big deal, at the jewelry guy in the back of the secondhand store. I've used mending from Old Flame Mending Company. I put those jeans in a package and mailed them to Pittsburgh from Philly.
Amazing.
I blot stains now in the moment, I used to just be like, I'll get to this later.
Wash those stains, yeah.
Straight to the bathroom, a little water. And I know that returns don't always land back on the shelf. It's that sweet, sweet reinforcement and your charisma. I want to hear it often so that it can roll off my tongue. And I want to spread the good news.
My name is Bianca. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. And coming to the Clotheshorse Jamboree was a decision that I made for myself as I'm entering a realm of moving slower and focusing on my values and thinking about what's important to me and how I can intentionally live my life and embody those values. And so it felt like a prioritization of myself to come here and be with other like-minded people. It has been magic so far, honestly. It is amazing. I've never been in a space where I'm with folks who literally are on the same page as me and care about it as passionately as I do. And that feels really, really good to know that that exists in this world. So I think my biggest takeaway is the intention and energy that you can put into something like this as a community just makes it that much bigger and more powerful and can reach other people and then just become an embodiment of everyone's like care for the world and each other.
Hi, my name is Brooke and I'm from Ohio, but I currently just live on the road. I've loved being at the Clotheshorse Jamboree. It is so inspiring that there's a place where all these people can connect over just real things that are happening. Especially at my age, I'm 21, and a lot of people my age are falling for the fast fashion trend. And I'm just thankful to be able to be here and to get educated, learn, share stories, make friends. My favorite thing about this, I mean, the people, but also that everything is secondhand. It's just very, it's very authentic.
Hello. My name is Isfaha Asilota. I am a conscious and plus-size content fashion creator and the founder of a fashion service agency named H&I Collective. I travel to Philadelphia, and some of the biggest things I love from the Jamboree were the intent to use secondhand whenever possible and the people I met. From the plates to the art supplies and the blank t-shirts that were used for merch, which did go up to a 2X if anybody was curious. The majority of all the items that we used throughout the weekend were secondhand. I can only imagine the amount of time and effort it took to source enough items to support a 50-person event. It is greatly appreciated. The community of folks I met throughout the event was also a major highlight. For a podcast that focuses on fashion, it was refreshing seeing how many non-fashion industry folks were there. I chatted with educators and engineers and arborists. It was a visual representation of the concept that you do not need to be a quote-unquote fashionista or somebody who works in fashion to care about how the clothes you wear are made.
Just hearing those messages 2 weeks later reminds me of what a just like life-changing, energizing experience the Jamboree was for me. And I'm so proud that it happened. There were several times where I considered calling it off. I mean, to be really honest with all of you, I did not sell that many tickets. I gave a lot away. I lost a few $1,000s of my own money to pull it off. Events are expensive and risky, and apparently you're supposed to lose money the first time you have an event, which someone should tell you that earlier on. Fortunately, I was able to pick up extra work to offset that, and it was definitely money well spent. And while I did, yes, wake up before dawn on the first day of the Jamboree thinking, how am I going to pull this off? Why did I do this? That feeling disappeared within 5 minutes of arriving at the candy factory, and when I got to hug so many people that I was excited to meet IRL for the first time. It was all worth it. Thank you to the amazing volunteers who helped make this happen. Casey, Stacy, Christine, Alex, Jesse, and Corey. This could not have happened with all of their help and support. And something kind of magical began to happen on the second day. Everyone just kind of started pitching in, loading stuff up, picking up trash, making chalkboard signs, setting up chairs, moving furniture, and so on. It just was truly such a community effort. There's so much of this kind of stuff involved in an event like this, and I'm just so grateful for everyone's help, and what an incredible group of people were there. It was so, so good. For the past 6 months, putting together the Jamboree has eaten up every moment of time that I wasn't actively working or doing housework or sleeping. So it feels kind of weird to have that time back now. I mean, imagine how many books I can read, how much mending I can finally tackle. I can finally finish the massive latch hook project that I began during the winter. Don't worry, there's plenty of other stuff for me to do at any given time. Although now I'm going to have more time since pickling season will be over soon too. But yes, what an amazing thing. And here's the big news. We're going to do this again in late spring 2025 in Portland, Oregon. I don't have many more details for you yet, but I'm excited to do this on the West Coast and hopefully reach a lot more people. So stay tuned as that plan develops. Okay, well, that's enough about the Jamboree for now. Like I said, we'll talk more about the secondhand aspect of it in the next episode. Let's get down to the main event of this episode, meeting Corinne. Corinne, introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, my name is Corinne Loperfido, and I am an upcycling artist, doing all different kinds of things, working from textile upcycling also to trash art. I have a permanent room called Trash Temple at Meow Wolf in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that's like the biggest trash art thing that people can see of mine in the public. And lately, I have been working with upcycling mostly t-shirts. And yesterday, I started working with towels as well. And so since textiles are one of the biggest contributors to our landfill, especially t-shirts, because everybody feels the need to make more merch, as if there's not enough merch. People still want more merch. And so I try and take that merch and turn it into other things that are more attractive than a t-shirt with a bunch of logos on it. So yeah, I just try and use what already exists on this earth, because I feel like as artists, we're supposed to be the dreamers and the creators of culture, and Native people all over the world would take things from the ground and make their art and make their clothes out of it. And so for me, in this contemporary latest stage of capitalism and economic decline, I'm like, well, what do I find on the ground? I find t-shirts. I find discarded old towels at estate sales. I try and use all these things that already exist, because I don't want to support the manufacturing of new materials just to make art.
That's amazing. I mean, I have known about you for a few years, and how I came to know who you are. Like when you reached out to me, I was like, oh, I already know who you are. Was because you were posting about Burning Man and talking about how inherently wasteful Burning Man has become. And I was so relieved.
Totally. Yeah, it needs to be talked about.
It needs to be talked about. And I was so relieved, because I had been feeling that for years. And I was too afraid to speak up about it, because as I saw when you spoke up about it, people were ready to fight with you about that all day, every day.
Well, for a lot of people, it's their identity and it's their religion. It's their reason for being. And so for me to be like, hey, this is actually not only not okay, it's actually kind of really messed up that we are putting all these resources. My number one gripe with it is that they are using new materials to build this giant man effigy and then burning it, and the temple as well. It's I understand. They're oh, well, it has to be structurally sound. I understand all the reasons why, but it's still just, especially now being in the midst of ongoing genocide since the last burn, all these people have lost their homes, have lost everything, lost their lives. And people are oh, it feels like a good idea to cut down trees and just burn them after being used for 1 week so that we can party.
I know. I mean, that just is appalling to me that that would be a normal practice in 2024, that no one would question that.
Yeah, and I think that, like, again, as artists and as dreamers and creators, if we want to create this new world that people talk about, well, what is the new world going to look like? Is it going to look like the old world where we just do the same old things? And just for a reality check, Burning Man is as old as me. And so that's not even 40 years old. Like, it's not even that old. And so the idea of letting it go and going back to a time before Burning Man, it's just that people get so caught up in these things that bring them joy that they don't realize, or not that they don't realize, they turn a blind eye to, and this goes for fashion as well. This is not just Burning Man. Well, I mean, fashion is a huge part of Burning Man. If we're going to talk about fast fashion and how people use things or go to flea markets or estate sales or thrift stores or fast fashion places and buy things, and they're like, oh, I don't care if it's going to get ruined at Burning Man. Like, I'll have fun in it for a few hours. You know what I mean? And then I'll get stuck in the mud and I'll throw it away, and I don't care whose land is being poisoned because I threw away my fast fashion polyester neon rave outfit or whatever, you know? And so I feel like, yes, there's a lot of people that do reuse things at Burning Man, but ultimately all the fossil fuel that's used to get people there, and then burning the gas generators and the solar panels. And like, I just really, in my own work, want to focus on what is going to be the best thing for the earth. And so my mantra is kind of like, before I do anything, what does the earth want me to do? And if people really sat with themselves and took a look around at the world, is the earth like, yes, I want you to go burn more fossil fuels at a party on the other side of the world?
Yeah, totally. The other way I was like aware of you before you reached out to me is I had seen your t-shirts that you were making out of old merch, your Abolish Fart Shame shirts, and that really resonated with me.
I hope I can fart in this interview.
I will be so proud if you do. Yeah. I generally tell people I'll like edit out their farts, but I'll be sure that we like crank it up on yours.
Yeah.
But
yes.
you know, like even that alone, like it's just so interesting to me because I think, believe it or not, like abolishing fart shame, and this is not an episode about farting, but it bears repeating that even just this idea that people would be ashamed to pass gas really speaks to this like sort of construct that we all live in that's based on like living really unnaturally. And part of that is like overconsumption, like sort of denying, I don't know, like our animal nature sort of, you know what I mean? Like it's just, so for me, like the intersection of like, I'm making shirts out of like merch.
Yeah, I feel like of all the messaging and all the things that I could say, like, for me, abolish fart shame, I'm glad you appreciate it. And a lot of people have been appreciating it more than I don't know. I guess I can't say more because everybody does fart. And a lot of people feel this way. Like, why are we supposed to be embarrassed of this? Or why do I have to feel bad about speaking out against Burning Man, even though we can all look at it objectively and be like, this is doing a lot more harm, even though it does good. Like, the harm is vast.
Yeah.
We can't ignore the harm that's being done. And we can't ignore the harm about holding in our farts and holding in our bodily functions and things because it leads to dis-ease. And when I heard about the 13 natural urges in Ayurveda, like burping, farting, laughing, crying, sneezing, coughing, eating, like all these different things that your body is like, I must do this. When we suppress these urges, it leads to dis-ease, disease. I'm like, yo, I'm not trying to get some gastrointestinal disease because I don't fart. Like, I'm going to fart it up. And so I think that, like, yeah, having some kind of ridiculous statement like that, even though, like, the world is burning and there's all these pressing issues and, like, is abolish fart shame a waste of time? Like, no, I think that I'm glad you appreciate this idea that, like, we are kind of stopping our natural bodies. We're disengaging from our humanness by not farting because we're like, oh, I need to uphold decorum. Like, I care more about decorum and what people think about me than I care about, like, not getting intestinal problems because I'm, like, holding this energy or not pooping or not doing whatever because of fear of social judgment. Like, the earth doesn't judge you for pooping and farting and all crying. You know what I mean? It's only humans that are upholding these things. And so I feel like the more that people can just outright fart in public, you know what I mean? Just normalize farting. Like, it's like, okay, if we can normalize farting, like, maybe we can, there's other things.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be a controversial take. Don't you think, I mean, I don't know, I get in my head about this kind of stuff all the time. And one thing I have been thinking a lot about this year is how sort of the way we kind of, that dis-ease that you're talking about, this dis-ease that we create for ourselves by having to kind of deny our physicality, like the size of our bodies and the gas we pass and the fact that we poop and that we get hungry and all these things that are this like social pressure to deny that stuff, this constant discomfort that's created by it. I think that drives people to buy more shit. I'm convinced that discomfort in our day-to-day lives, it like builds up.
Yeah, discomfort leads to impulse buying.
Yes, I'm convinced.
No, it's true, because if you were like, I'm happy with myself, like, I'm happy with whatever, like, my body needs clothes, my body needs a fart. Just, being more present with what you really need instead of giving more energy to kind of the presentation and what others think about you. Like, would people even buy so much fast fashion if there wasn't this pressure to have a new outfit all the time? Like, I am proud to wear the same outfits for 10 years and to fix things and for things to have stains on them. Like, that means I didn't support exploitation. Like, the more stains I have on my clothes, that means the longer I've gone without wasting materials or exploiting people, like buying new stuff I didn't need.
Exactly. I feel like it's connected. I just think back to moments in my life where sort of like the discomfort of existing in society and having to be the version that I'm supposed to give the world. I felt so chronically unhappy, and I would find myself just like shopping all the time, and nothing made me happy. And I had a stomachache all the time. Just saying. So it just...
Exactly. You just needed a fart, honey. You needed a fart.
I mean, among other things, but yeah, for sure.
The root of everybody's problems is the suppression of their natural urges and the desire to conform. But it's kind of like, why would I conform? It's kind of like, I saw this quote years ago. It was like, I'm sick of working a job I don't like to impress people that I don't like. Or something like this, like spending my time making money to buy stuff I don't care about to impress people I don't care about.
Oh my God. So on point.
And I was just talking with my friend earlier today about, because I posted a couple days ago on my Instagram. I got this wild hair at my ass to be like, you know what? I need to get rid of more polyester clothes, because I somehow, even after years of trying to get rid of polyester clothes, I still have some precious vintage things that I'm like, oh, but this is so cool. Even though I don't really wear them because I make so many of my own clothes and I have so many cool things that I like better. I live in Texas. I don't gravitate towards the polyester clothes. And so I posted this story sale where I was like, hey, everybody, like, these are not garbage clothes. In fact, they're quite amazing, but I don't want them anymore. I don't want to just give them to the thrift store and risk them going into the landfill. So let me see if anyone wants these things first before I try and sell them at Buffalo Exchange or whatever and get $3. But my friend was like, you know what? You inspired me. I went through my clothes and I realized that all of my athletic clothes are polyester. And so I wanted to talk about that today too, and how, speaking of like suppression in the body and like ailments that we give ourselves because of like social expectations or whatever, people are working out, sweating, causing heat. It's kind of like, why do you not put plastic in the microwave? Because the plastic melts and like off gases. So why are we putting plastic on our bodies when we're sweating and working out? That is like off gassing and hot boxing our flesh inside of these plastic clothes, whether it's recycled plastic bottles or not. I don't want plastic on my body. And so just how toxic it is to be like, oh, I'm doing the thing. I'm working out. I'm being healthy, but I'm literally wearing a toxic, like, tight item around my skin.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us have been sort of like bamboozled by the workout clothes industrial complex to think that somehow these plastic clothes are wicking or breathable, like that kind of thing. Like that's what, that's the verbiage that's always applied to these like plastic clothes, that you need them for working out because they wick moisture from your body, or they are cool. They make your body feel cooler. And I'm like, that's not true at all. It's plastic, guys. It's sort of just trapping it in there. And maybe you don't look wet when you're wearing it because the moisture's trapped.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do it for looks too. They're like, oh, my butt is lifted. My boobs look good, instead of like the moisture's trapped in my body. People are like, oh, but my butt cheeks look good. I'm like, again, it comes back to the appearance and the presentation to others, not like, what does my body need? My body needs airflow. Maybe I could wear these baggy cotton shorts so that I have airflow. It's not going to look as cute, but ultimately, like, I would rather like not have cancer than look cute in my gym shorts.
Yeah, well, and just also, and be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is like it doesn't actually make you feel more comfortable. But man, I'll tell you, every time I talk about polyester, people show up to fight with me about workout wear and how it's a necessary evil. And
No.
I'm sorry, I question that. I question that because I think we're used to thinking we need to work out in leggings, right? I know sports bras, that's like a whole other thing, and I don't even want to get into it because like I get it. I need a mega sports bra, right? But like we could wear cotton pants to work out, you know? Like I don't know. I just don't know. I think leggings have invaded our lives a little too much.
Yes. Well, and that's what we were talking about, is that she was like, even my quote unquote lesser bad ones that are not polyester fully, they're still 95.5, which is like 95 cotton, 5% spandex or polyester, because you need that little bit of stretch, or else the cotton is kind of like a stiff cotton t-shirt. That's why everyone was so obsessed with the 50-50 poly cotton shirts. Like from our parents' generation, we were like, oh, the vintage t-shirts are so soft. It's because they were 50-50 poly cotton, and that stretchiness and the softness that comes with the polyester fiber. People were like, I'll take 50% suffocation for that nice soft texture or whatever.
I think this is a great transition into something that we wanted to talk about today, which is another thing that like I don't know. I mean, this is a lot of work to undo, surprisingly, for something that nobody really needs, and that's merch. And I know you have really, really strong feelings about merch as a whole, and I'll tell you, Corinne, every time I bring this up on social media, people get so mad at me for saying that we need to like stop buying so much merch. Like they will agree. Companies need to stop making dumb, like, corporate swag bullshit because nobody wants that.
Yeah, definitely no one wants corporate swag. If you're going to make a band t-shirt, at least make your band t-shirt with, like, hire an artist, make it really cool. Don't just, like, make it just about your band's name really big. Like, make it a piece of art that someone actually wants. But as far as the Charles Schwab LGBTQIA plus pride shirt that I found at the bins, a giant white t-shirt with a Charles Schwab rainbow flag, I was like, literally no one wants this at all. And so it's like, number one, if we're going to talk about merch, abolish corporate bullshit merch, number one.
For sure. Instantly, right?
Yeah, instantly. No question, no justification. It is done. And then I think about things like a family reunion or like a marathon or these events, like a one-day event. I call them single-use t-shirts, like something that you're going to wear once because you're obligated to, and then you're going to be like, maybe you'll keep it in the back of your closet for memorabilia, but like never wear it again. Or you'll like, oh, I'll wear it to bed as a nightshirt because it's like not cute. Like, stop making things that are not cute. That's another thing. Like, part of merch is that everyone's just like, oh yeah, a t-shirt. Everyone will buy a t-shirt. And it's like, well, that's because it's the only option you give them. Like, maybe if you gave them other options, yeah, you're gonna sell less merch if the things are more expensive, but also like, by just buying clothes that are like made in Bangladesh or made in China or made wherever, just using cheap labor on the other side of the country so that your band can like have a t-shirt and you can pay, you know, the lowest price to get a screen print done so that you can just pump out these things to try and make money. Like, it's just not justified to me. Like, if you have to exploit people to get your product out there, do you deserve to make that product? Do people need your product so bad that other people...
Right. I mean, does the world need that product?
So much of that other people deserve to die or be exploited and like just so that you can have a band t-shirt and like make $10? Like, is that really worth it? And so that's where with merch, I want people who are considering making merch to, number one, be like, could this be number one, like, you know, that thing that's like, this could have been an email instead of a phone call or a meeting or whatever. Like, do you even need to make this merch? Number one, could this just be an email? Number two, is there any way that you could use thrifted stuff? Because there's plenty of blank shirts at the thrift store. But it's like everyone just wants to increase production and increase profit. They don't want to decrease environmental destruction and increase the quality of life for the people making and wearing the garments. For me, I want to take things that the thrift store was getting rid of because no one wanted this merch to begin with, and certainly no one else is going to want it at the thrift store because it doesn't have any sentimental value to the people at the thrift store. And I want to take things and make something that people actually would wear, like the t-shirt dresses I've been making, where I take after I cut the letters out, because I'll make these like fabric memes out of old like cloth napkins or vintage textiles, and I'll take old t-shirts, cut all the letters out of it, iron them with fusible webbing. That's the one like evil new materials part of my process that I will be transparent about. The fabric I get from the bins, the Goodwill bins, things that the thrift store was getting rid of, or like from estate sales, or just, you know, the stuff on the get rid of $1 rack at the thrift store, things that no one wants. And then thread I get from estate sales or from dead family members or whatever. Like thread comes to me. I don't go to Joann Fabrics and buy thread. But fusible webbing is this stuff, or interfacing, it's called. You basically iron it on to stretchy fabric on the back, and it's like a piece of polyester fabric that has like little droplets of glue on it. And when you iron it onto the back of the fabric, it stabilizes the stretchy fabric, because t-shirt material is very stretchy. And so if you're trying to like sew t-shirt material together on a home sewing machine, like these little letters, they like roll up and it just doesn't really work. And so I'm like, okay, I could have this thing look crappy, or I could use a very small amount of this like new polyester material to make this thing look better and last a lot longer, when 97% of the item is made with upcycled stuff that was going to be thrown away. But yeah, I just think about like, how can we do the least amount of exploitation to get the most quality thing that people actually would use? But then it becomes so expensive that people are like, well, I'm used to paying $20 for a t-shirt. What do you mean this dress is $400? I'm like, well, it took me an entire day and it's one of a kind, and like every individual piece has to be cut out, and you know what I mean? Like people just, because we're so removed from the garment production world, because we don't see it anymore, and like certainly factories in other countries are not giving us footage of what it's like inside of the t-shirt producing factories, not to mention the amount of water that it takes just to produce one single t-shirt. And so it's just like the lifespan. I'm trying to extend the lifespan of these items by actually making something that people would wear for many, many years. I want a garment that people are going to keep for 10 years and repair, as opposed to making a t-shirt that they'll wear for a year and then be like, I don't really care about this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the merch industrial complex is really complicated, right? Like, I think that people can universally agree that, like, these companies should be making their hideous, unwanted swag. But then is like the next round of conversation, which gets people really riled up, which is, and I agree. This, like, it's a complicated situation, right? Because, for example, with bands, it's harder than ever to make a living as a musician because people don't really buy music anymore. They stream it. And we know that, like, the only people getting rich off Spotify are the people at the top, right? Everybody else is getting like a check for 1 cent. And if they get a check at all. And so this has like puts more pressure on musicians to make merch.
Right.
So like just pausing it right there, it's like, okay, well, clearly, rather than saying, okay, well, you're right, let's everybody keep making crappy t-shirts to solve this problem, why don't we revisit the value of art and music, you know, and writing and this podcast, you know, and movies? How do we get people to pay for art rather than getting the art for free and buying the merch affiliated with the art? Like, that's a big part of the problem. That people don't want to pay for the work.
Yes. Yeah, they also don't want to like go to the bar or whatever. I think a lot of people are just increasingly like, I spend so much time on the internet, I don't want to like go to a lot. I actually want to like interact with people, because so many of our social interactions are like happening in the non-physical world. When you go to a show or something, like it would be nice if a show was in an environment that was actually a pleasant environment. For me, I don't want to like go drive downtown and like park and go to a loud club that I've already been to 50 times and like, you know what I mean? Just get blasted with bad quality sound and like drunk people and la da da. Like, I would actually challenge musicians to, instead of offering them merch, because remember that before merch, musicians, yeah, of course it was a completely different world and people had to pay for records or they had to like pay more to go to the concert because there just wasn't this oversaturation that we see now. But people were getting a more quality experience. And I feel like my challenge to musicians or any kind of person that thinks that they like quote unquote need merch, like what if you actually offered people a more quality experience? What if your show wasn't at a club? What if it was like on a farm and there was more space and it was outside and you could have people bring their own shirts, or you had a bunch of thrifted shirts, or there was even a clothing swap at the beginning of the show and after the show that was going on, like while the music is like happening. Like there could also be like a screen printing table where you could bring something and like get the art from the band like printed on something you already like. And so, but then people are like, oh, well, that's not going to generate a lot of money. Now I have to pay the screen printer. I have to blah, blah, blah. If people aren't buying the shirt, they're bringing their own shirt. They're not going to want to pay as much. But it's just kind of like, I don't have all the answers to this, but I feel like continuing to make excuses and be like, well, Spotify takes all my money, so I have to pay the lowest price to people in Bangladesh to make my cheap t-shirts or else I'll be impoverished. It's like, don't you think the people that are making the t-shirts and the people that live in Chile that are suffering by all of these clothes going to their desert and like rotting in their desert, don't you think those people are impoverished and suffering? Like, do you really have the right to like continue to perpetuate this just because you're like in a band for now? Like, how long do bands even last? Like, what is the long-term value of this item? And that's why I'm saying, like, at the bare minimum, people, hire an artist to make a really cool design that and put your band's name as like maybe not the most prominent thing so that people can be like, this is a cool shirt. More so than just like, oh, this is a plain shirt with the simple band's logo.
Right. And I think like here we are. Like streaming has been around basically this entire century, right? And what's interesting is like the only part of the industry that really changed is that musicians, don't really sell records, right? Like they used to. And during that time period, no one said, hey, like, why don't we organize as the fuel for all these streaming platforms and say like, hey, we want a bigger payout, right? Or why aren't they innovating what it means to tour? And like you said, like where they tour and the kind of merch that they create and sell. Because like I get it, like I understand the struggle is real to get paid for your creative work. But like that's where innovation comes into play. And that's also where organizing comes into play rather than saying like, well, I'm just going to order these t-shirts from Bangladesh. Like nobody's like active. I feel like, I don't know, all the musicians in my life are feeling the same pain. What if they all organized together and actually like changed what this industry looks like and made being a musician a paying job again, So I feel like merch is not a solution to this. It's just like, and it's not even a Band-Aid really. It's like a crappy Band-Aid that's going to fall off the moment you wash your hands or something. Like it's not good, but it's the excuse that people will push back on me on. And I totally get it. Like as a podcaster, everybody gets all my podcasts for free, no matter where they listen to them. I don't get paid for it. And so many people over the past few years have been like, oh, but if you made merch, I'd buy it. And it's like, so should I not make the podcast anymore? Like, I'm so confused by this,
Are you familiar with this artist, Hilla the Earth, the girl that dresses up like the Earth and raps?
Yeah.
So she's a friend of mine, and she had me make some custom clothes for her this year, and we're going to work on more. But she was like, I've always wanted to do merch, but obviously my whole thing is like Hilla the Earth. I don't want to just support the t-shirt industrial complex.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what could I do? She was like, I would love to do like custom merch of some kind, but then it's going to be expensive. And like when I was posting the other day on Instagram about the t-shirt dresses and just trying to get a gauge for like, what would people actually buy? I don't want to make a bunch of stuff that people can't afford. But then again, I'm not going to undercut myself so that someone else can have a lovely item that I like spent an entire day making and like underpay myself. So it's kind of like, where is that middle ground of like, giving people something that they can afford? I mean, we can move into that conversation about quote unquote affordable. But I was like, hey, everybody, I'm just going to be completely honest with you. As an artist, it is really not that fun for me to make anything that costs less than $150 because the amount of time and energy that it takes me to source the materials, wash them, drive to and from said locations of doing that just to get the stuff. then it's way more work to like drive around to different locations and source upcycle stuff that you're going to upcycle with than it is to drive to Joann's and just say, oh, 5 yards of made in China fabric, please, going home. You know what I mean? So like for me to like go get the stuff takes hours, and then washing it I have to pay for. Then for me to like cut it all up and process it and make it into something else, and then pay assistants, which I pay my sewing assistants $28 to $40 an hour, depending on what they're doing. So, and myself as well. So it's like, if I'm paying people a living wage, not supporting, you know, new materials, and trying to not use as many fossil fuels as possible in my process, and trying to like stack up my errands and do things in an efficient way. All throughout the process, I'm putting in this labor to like make the most ethical thing that I can possibly come up with. So all of those efforts, no matter what I make, nothing is going to take less than 3 hours for me to make.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I bet you just blew someone's mind by them hearing that, because people think that this kind of stuff just gets whipped together. And like, I see people on the internet harassing upcyclers all the time. Like, what? I could get this brand new for $20. And it's like, yeah, but like, it's hard.
Right.
This
it's
is
like,
hard work.
That is literally saying, yeah, but I could literally just go exploit some woman. I could take advantage of BIPOC people so that I can enjoy my thing. Like, no. So what needs to happen in this conversation that we're having, and the whole point of this podcast and the whole point of the slow fashion movement, is to be like, we do not consent to the perpetuation of the exploitation of others for the gain of some. And yeah, guys, I'm sorry that you were raised on $20 t-shirts and $5 tank tops from H&M, but you can kiss that goodbye. And so you best take care of them. Because I personally do not vote for a world where people are exploited so that I can have my fun. And yes, I do drive a gas-powered car. I know that people will come for me for that. But as I was saying, like, even in the way that I, like, move through the world, like, my partner has a Prius. And so when I go to do my sewing appointments with my sewer in Austin, now that I don't live in Austin anymore, I have to drive to meet him. We'll carpool. He'll drop me off, go do his thing that he needs to do for a few hours, come back and like work for me, and we'll all work together. And then, so it's like I'm carpooling and stacking functions and like doubling up and like doing as much work as I can in a day just to use less fossil fuels. And so it's like when people are just saying like, oh, I could literally just buy this somewhere else, they're saying, I don't care who was underpaid or not paid or taken advantage of, or who had to lose their children or lose a limb or lose whatever they had to lose because I want my $20 t-shirt. That is nothing to brag about. It is nothing to be proud of. And it is nothing that we need to bring into the new world. And so all of these factories and all these people, because people are going to say, oh, well, these people need jobs. Like, we're giving them jobs. It's like, well, what if all these people who know how to sew?
Oh, I hate that one. That one's like,
it's just so fucking selfish. It's like, honey, your privilege is showing. I'm sorry, but you need to take a step back and look in the mirror. Like, what is that about? But all these people that know how to sew and they have the machines, let's start using all the stuff that was going to go to the thrift store or that the thrift store is rejecting, send it back to these factories and like make some better stuff. And so something I want to say on this note too is that people are always like, oh my God, you look so good. I love your outfit. You look amazing. Like, I'm always getting compliments every time I go out. And I'm always like, thank you so much. Yeah, I just don't believe in having ugly clothes. And because I don't have ugly clothes, I don't look ugly and I don't feel ugly. And so it's like, if you stop buying ugly clothes, you're not going to be like, oh, I feel like shit. I look like shit today. You're going to be like, this is amazing. Like, if you had a few dresses that cost you a couple $100s that were handmade and amazing, you're going to get compliments all the time. You're going to feel better in the clothes because you know that you paid an ethical price to someone, and the clothes are going to be better designed because hopefully independent designers that are putting time and energy, all the clothes I see coming out of slow fashion movement are way better than the things I see coming out of these, you know, large brand companies. And remember that a lot of these large brand companies are directly stealing from people. Like a friend of mine, Yin Shadows on Instagram, Megan Boyd, she's a painter. She's always posting about how these cheap companies like Temu and whatever, all different kinds of companies, literally steal her art from her website, steal it, print it on fabric, and are selling clothes, and they never talk to her about it. And so it's like, if you're not buying direct from an artist and you're not like in communication with the people in some way or aware of like the practices from the company, you're literally voting for continued extraction and exploitation. And so, yeah, everyone's going to have to suck it up. Number one, they can start by mending the clothes they already have. That's the most important thing we need to do in slow fashion is mend the things that already exist. And number two, you're going to have to let go of your entitlement to believe that you deserve to pay less than $100 for a handmade article of clothing. I'm sorry. You need to realize what is at stake and whose lives are at stake for your t-shirt.
Totally. I think that's an important thing to call out too, because a lot of the pushback I've gotten over the years, and I'm sure you've seen this across the internet too, is like, well, I'm just one person and my impact isn't as big as Amazon. So the corporations, they're the ones who really have to change, especially when we're talking about climate change. And the reality is, even just with climate change as an example, that the solution, the future, is yes, corporations obviously changing a lot of the things that they're doing right now and regulations that force them to do that. But also humans, all of us as individuals, we're going to have to change what we do too, right? We're going to have to stop having like an hour and a half commute to work in a car, right? And we're going to have to take more public transportation, and we're going to have to fly less, and we're going to have to like wear a sweater or get our houses insulated. There will be individual changes as well that are part of the systemic change. Here's the thing about slow fashion as a whole is that the reason I don't use the term sustainable fashion, I mean, it's complicated. One is like the word sustainable has low-key been ruined by so much greenwashing. But I also, when I think about like the term sustainable fashion, to me, it's like a marketing term. It's like an industry term, and it really ties into like shopping. It's shopping focused. Like, where can I buy sustainable clothes, not regular bad clothes, right? And to me, slow fashion shopping is like the least important part of it. It's about like an entire way of life, like a lifestyle change, where we recognize that nothing is disposable and nothing is without impact, and we make better decisions. And so rather than saying like, okay, well, where can I shop? We say, how can I get maximum use out of what already exists? And we like look for solutions. And, like going back to like merch and musicians, it's like rather than saying like, well, my only solution in this era of streaming is to make merch, saying instead like, my only option here actually is to organize with other musicians and change what the industry is right now. Like that's the hard work, but that's what's going to lead to a better solution. And slow fashion is about saying like, hey, sometimes it's not going to be easy. I'm going to have to get over instant gratification, or at least I'm going to have to look for it in different places. What's like super instantly gratifying is fixing something that you already own. It like feels way better than buying something new ever does, no matter what it is, whether it's your car or your lawnmower or your like sewing machine or your clothes. Fixing it yourself is like the best feeling ever, right? But we don't live in a society right now that encourages that. Like the idea of fixing something is almost like, well, people think you're like some revolutionary because we're just like, buy something new. It's like that easy, like you could just sit on your couch and buy something new.
Yeah, I think that what we need to do now is like shift our priorities in the way that we think about things. Like we were saying, we have to get over the fact that we were brought up on $20 t-shirts. And like, I love what you just said about musicians. We can't just say, oh, this is what we have to do. It's like, no, we actually have to organize for a better world. And that is across the board too. Like there's so many things that people just accept and they're like, oh, it's the way it is. But it's really, if you zoom out, not even that far, it's the way it is right now and has been for actually quite a short amount of time. And if we can look to other examples of things that worked in the past, not that we can just say, oh, let's go back to the way things were, because no, we live in a completely different world. Like I was just talking at length yesterday with my partner about Facebook events and how 15 years ago was the glory days of the internet. And it was like before all the big social medias, before everyone had smartphones, and you could just get on the weekend, look up your Facebook page and see what events you had been invited to. And like one other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of like getting people, because something that you talk about a lot and that I'm sure all of us in slow fashion think about a lot is how do we get more people to join on to this? How do we get people to do that cultural shift into the reprioritization and not getting off on shopping, but getting off on, hey, I fixed this, or hey, I took my pile of clothes that are damaged, and instead of leaving them in the back of the closet, because they are a lot of my favorite clothes, I actually paid $100 and got the whole bag mended at the alterations place. And now it's kind of like I have a bunch of new clothes because they are fixed and I can keep using them. So the thing that we really need is to invite people to other things. And so when we were talking about Facebook and like, it was so cool, like every weekend I could just look and see what events were going on. Yeah, sure, I might have seen some posters around town, and like it takes people around 3 times they need to hear about something before they make a decision. So they might see a poster and then they might hear a friend talk about it, and then they check their Facebook invites and like the person who's throwing the event invited them. They're like, okay, cool. Yes, all signs are pointing to I should go to this event. And so with slow fashion, like what we need is to actually invite people to do something differently. And so there's this Jane Fonda, the like actress and climate activist. She, in her pursuit of like how to get more people into climate activism, she commissioned this survey that was like asking people like who had like recently gotten involved with some kind of like climate stuff, like, what took you so long, or why did you just join, or like what stopped you from getting involved with this sooner? And the majority of the people said, no one invited me. And so that really got my wheels turning about, and this is part of like, and I want to talk about this today too, the Slow Fashion Center for Degrowth, this project that I did, started as a 2-week art residency in Lake City, South Carolina, at this event called Art Fields that happens in the spring. It's like a big art event. And they had me come out there and set up my little workshop and stuff. But the part of the reason why I had that idea is because of this quote, people were not invited, and so therefore they didn't get involved. It made me be like, okay, shit, like if more people, how do we get more people to know about slow fashion? Because there is such an extreme sticker shock that happens. It's like slow fashion finds out about slow fashion. Next moment, sticker shock. Like, oh my God, all these clothes are 4, 5, 6 times more expensive than anything I've ever like thought about paying for. You know what I mean? And they don't even have beads and sequins on them or whatever people think like quote unquote expensive clothes should look like. And so really the expensive clothes is because of the labor that it takes to do that and to source the materials. And like, you know, when there's nobody getting exploited, then the price is significantly higher. The cheap price you're paying is just the person who made the thing didn't get paid. That's why you're not paying very much, because they didn't get paid. When you're actually paying the person who made the item a living wage that you yourself wouldn't work for, then yeah, sorry about it. Like everybody's getting paid a reasonable wage. And so if you want the item, you have to pay the people who did the labor to make your item. And so in the spirit of like inviting people to things, just in the same way I'm calling on musicians to re-examine the way that they do merch and re-examine the way that they tour and do shows and all of this, I'm inviting people who work in slow fashion to think about hosting some kind of slow fashion center for degrowth in their own way.
Let's take a moment to thank some of the incredible small businesses who keep Clotheshorse going via their generous Patreon support. Selena Sanders, a social impact brand that specializes in upcycled clothing using only reclaimed, vintage, or thrifted materials from tea towels, linens, blankets, and quilts. Sustainably crafted in Los Angeles, each piece is designed to last in one's closet for generations to come. Maximum style, minimal carbon footprint. Shift Clothing out of beautiful Astoria, Oregon, with a focus on natural fibers, simple hardworking designs, and putting fat people first. Discover more at shiftwheeler.com. Late to the Party, creating one-of-a-kind statement clothing from vintage, salvaged, and thrifted textiles. They hope to tap into the dreamy memories we all hold. Floral curtains, a childhood dress, the wallpaper in your best friend's rec room, all while creating modern, sustainable garments that you'll love wearing and have for years to come. Late to the Party is passionate about celebrating and preserving textiles, the memories they hold, and the stories they have yet to tell. Check them out on Instagram at Late to the Party People. Vino Vintage, based just outside of LA. We love the hunt of shopping secondhand because you never know what you might find. Catch us at flea markets around Southern California by following us on Instagram at vino.vintage so you don't miss our next event. Dylan Page is an online clothing and lifestyle brand based out of St. Louis, Missouri. Our products are chosen with intention for the conscious community. Everything we carry is animal-friendly, ethically made, sustainably sourced, and cruelty-free. Dylan Page is for those who never stop questioning where something comes from. We know that personal experience dictates what's sustainable for you, and we are here to help guide and support you to make choices that fit your needs. Check us out at dylanpage.com and find us on Instagram at dylanpagelifeandstyle. Salt Hats, purveyors of truly sustainable hats, hand-blocked, sewn, and embellished in Detroit, Michigan. Find us on Instagram at Salt Hats. Gentle Vibes Vintage. We are purveyors of polyester and psychedelic relics. We encourage experimentation and play not only in your wardrobe, but in your home too. We have thousands of killer vintage pieces ready for their next adventure. See them all on Instagram at Gentle Vibes Vintage. Thumbprint is Detroit's only fair trade marketplace located in the historic Eastern Market. Our small business specializes in products handmade by empowered women in South Africa, making a living wage, creating things they love like hand-painted candles and ceramics. We also carry a curated assortment of sustainable and natural locally made goods. Thumbprint is a great gift destination for both the special people in your life and for yourself. Browse our online store at thumbprintdetroit.com and find us on Instagram at thumbprintdetroit. Vagabond Vintage DTLV is a vintage clothing, accessories, and decor reselling business based in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada. Not only do we sell in Las Vegas, but we're also located throughout resale markets in San Francisco, as well as at a curated boutique called Lux and Ivy, located in Indianapolis, Indiana. Jessica, the founder and owner of Vagabond Vintage DTLV, recently opened the first IRL location located in the Arts District of downtown Las Vegas on August 5th. The shop has a strong emphasis on 60s and 70s garments, single-stitch tees, and dreamy loungewear. Follow them on Instagram at Vagabond Vintage DTLV and keep an eye out for their website coming fall of 2022.
So the Slow Fashion Center for Degrowth came about because this arts festival called Art Fields in Lake City, South Carolina, hit me up. A friend of mine connected me. I had gone to Columbia, South Carolina to do this like cob oven mosaic project last year. And then my friend had this plan, this plot for me to come to Lake City to do this arts festival. And then I ended up setting up this residency where they gave me an empty kind of storefront building that had 2 rooms and was right in the middle of town, in the middle of the thing with lots of foot traffic. And I had to fly in because it was really far away. And I was like, well, when I think about the fossil fuels to like drive myself alone in my van across the country versus like flying and then just walking because there was a hotel right next to it. So every day I would show up for 9 days of the festival and people would come in and I had a whole installation in one room of my personal clothes and some things for sale, like P-rags and the fabric memes and some like modified upcycled clothing I had done from stuff that I got at the Goodwill bins. And also the other room had free clothes. And so I would pull from the free clothes and throughout the day, whenever there was no one, which there usually was people there all the time. It was great. I would be teaching people how to sew or mend their clothes, or they would come in and just check out the art. And some people would come back and people would come back multiple times throughout the week or throughout the day and be like, oh, I went home and like grabbed my thing that I need to fix and like teach me how to fix it. And so I had my art set up just to kind of show people, hey, here's some examples. And by art, I mean like my personal clothes that I wear. And people are always like, where are you going? Where's the party? And I'm just like, listen, I just only have cool clothes because then you always feel good.
It's true. That's how I operate too.
Yeah, you just gotta like look good and then people want to talk to you. And then when you're like, I made this. So that's kind of my whole point for people was like, it's way cooler to know how to make things or to like buy things that an artist made than like buy a bunch of fast fashion. Like if you wore the same sweater that was like super cool all the time and you took care of it, like even if it had some stains on it and even if people had already seen you wear it, they're going to notice that and think that it's way more awesome than if you have like a new Zara plain shirt on, like whatever. Like, I don't know. I've never been interested in white Nikes. And so I would just rather have, what was that thing in art school? I went to college for graphic design with a minor in art history, but there was this thing I remember, like about sculptures. It was like warts and all. It was like, I can't remember this phrase. Did you ever learn about this?
The imperfection is actually like an important part of the beauty of it and really a part of the like creative expression, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't diminish it. It's kind of like if you have a wart or for whatever, like that's not the end of the world. It's not like, oh, you have to be this perfectly chiseled thing. Like, and so to go to the lengths, that was like the argument that I remember from the class. It was like to go to the lengths to actually like put someone's imperfections in takes more effort than just making it smooth because you have to like work that into the stone. You're literally carving stone. So anyway, the whole point is that like it's okay if things are not perfect. It matters that they're like made with love and that you care about them and you're proud of them. So by having like some sewing machines and cutting mats, and I wasn't able to bring everything because I flew in, and so my friend and other people like through the organization helped me set all this stuff up and borrow sewing machines and thread and cutting mats, and you know, I brought my scissors and pins and the stuff I could fly with and a bunch of my inventory, and then I worked with the organization Art Fields, who is, you know, they're part of a small community. And so they hit up the 2 local thrift stores and said, hey, could we get some of the clothes that you were going to get rid of? Because my whole thing is like, I want to use things at the thrift store. I want the things that no one wants. Like someone got rid of it, gave it to the thrift store. The thrift store tried to sell it or didn't. They don't want it. Before it like goes to another country and like destroys the garment industry and cultural history of other countries by like having these crappy ass clothes from the Americans don't want, I would rather like take responsibility for it and do something with it. And so, you know, it's easier to go to the thrift store and pick out the nice stuff and do something, but I feel like as a creative that it's my responsibility to like do something with the like refuse of society as opposed to like, I can't critique it while also contributing to it. You know what I mean? I can't just be like, oh, I'm going to these big box stores and like contributing to buying new materials to make my like political art. It's like, no, I'm getting people to donate their shitty old stained clothes.
Right.
And then I'm saying, hey, who wants some free clothes? P.S. I can help you fix it. And so, yeah, that's where like the whole thing. And have you ever heard of social practice art?
No, tell me more about it. I mean, I like the name a lot.
Yeah, someone came up to me once at a film festival many years ago, and they were like, hey, you don't know me, but I know you, and I've been following you for many years, and I need you to know that you're doing social practice art. And so I looked it up, and it basically means that, like, the artist in their existence as a person in the world, in the context of the moment, is the art. And sure, there might be like art objects or performance art pieces or these different kind of quote unquote more traditional things that you would think of as art. But social practice art is like the way that you exist and operate in the community is the art form. And so to me, like, yes, you can see my art objects on the wall that belong to me. You can buy my art objects in the form of bottle cap necklaces or upcycled garments or pea rags. Or you can like participate in the art by giving and taking some free clothes, by learning how to mend, by like letting me borrow your iron, like all these different elements that the installation, the residency, like that was the art. Even though, yes, I made a bunch of clothes and I sold a bunch of things. The real meat of it for me and what is the real important angle from my end with slow fashion is the community sharing and the giving of skills. Because if more people know how to mend, then less people will be like wanting to buy fast fashion because they're like, well, I know how to fix that. It literally takes 15 minutes. Or I like want to do this really cool embroidery technique that's going to take me 3 hours, but like whatever, these are my favorite jeans and now they have this cool embroidery thing on them. So I think that like making the mending part of it and like instead of like, oh, it's this annoying thing I have to do, you're like, oh yeah, wabi sabi approach. It's going to be more cool once I like put some energy and effort into it. So that was the point of the Slow Fashion Center for Degrowth, was just a community activation of teaching and also like leading by example. Like, hey, here's some things I made. Like maybe you don't want that, but it inspires you to be like, oh yeah, I could cut apart a bunch of my jeans and make one like ultimate pair of work jeans. And so coming up with that, I'm going to be doing like a more smaller scale version, because that one I had like a whole place to myself set up, but I'm going to do a more like pop-up version in Austin, Texas at Shop Slow next month. On September 13th is the art show, and September 14th I'm going to be teaching a sewing workshop with a couple other upcycling artists called Take Care of the Things You Already Have. And the art show is going to show like my fabric memes and my upcycled clothing, and then I'm going to turn my van into like a free clothes like pop-up shop. And so I'll park my van right up next to the shop, and people can leave their clothes, and I'll have a bunch of random stuff in there that I want to get rid of too. And I'll just open the doors of my van and be like, hey, boom, come and take stuff, throw clothes on, pants on the bottom, shirts on the top, because I have my van like built out to be like a bed because I used to travel in it. So it's very utilitarian. And then I'll have another person doing clothing repair and jewelry repair, and we're going to have a panel discussion with Leah, who created the Slow Fashion Fest, and myself and a couple other upcyclers, my friend Lauren, who does kind of a similar thing as me, like taking old shirts and like scrapping them together into other new clothes, and then my friend Aaron, whose Instagram handle is Sleep Never. He's my main sewing collaborator, and we're just going to be talking about slow fashion and the trials and tribulations of getting people inspired to want to participate. And just an opportunity for people to see slow fashion and come into the store of Shop Slow and see a brick and mortar store. Like, hey, this is what it could look like if we like abolish JCPenney. Like, we could have this kind of cool stuff.
I've been just thinking about this so much lately that, becoming a member, I don't know, of the slow fashion community, of like living the slow fashion lifestyle it's like really, I don't know, it's political. It's really revolutionary, because it kind of turns its back on all this like bullshit that we're sold that's supposed to be important, right? Like literally being sold, but also like figuratively, that we need lots of new clothes and we need lots of new stuff, right? And when things aren't in perfect condition anymore, they need to be replaced. Like I was thinking about that a couple weeks ago. I was like hanging out my laundry, and a bunch of my dish towels have like just massive holes in them. And I was like, oh, I'd be so embarrassed if someone came over and saw these. And then I was like, wait a minute. No, I wouldn't be. Like, I would be like, that's right. I've had these dish towels for like 10 years and they're still going strong. And like, that's what's the slow fashion way of life is, And so many other people would see those dish towels and they would feel that sense of shame, and they would get in the car and they drive over to like Home Goods and they buy a bunch of new dish towels and throw out these other ones that probably have years and years of use in them still, right?
You can always take one dish towel and sacrifice it and use it, cut it up into like 8 little squares, and then repair the 8 haggard dish towels. Spend 1 hour just on the regular home sewing machine, like repairing those few dish towels. I repair my towels. I repair my underwear and my socks and all the little stupid things.
Totally. And I just feel like, but like society in all caps, whatever, tells us that we should throw those out and get new ones, so people don't think that we're like gross or poor or dirty or whatever the implication is when you use well-worn things and continue to use them. And so by living this slow fashion way, like you are really like, you're turning what society tells us should matter and what we should do, you're turning it upside down, which is very scary for a lot of people, right? I think that right now we're at this turning point in the world. We've actually been here for a long time, where you can either just continue doing what we've been doing this whole time, knowing that it sucks and that it's not good for the planet or its people, but like it feels too hard to change. Or you can say, I'm ready. I'm going to change, and I'm going to get other people to change, and this is going to spread like wildfire. And we're going to see this like revolution in terms of how we live as humans. No big deal. No big deal, right?
No big deal. Well, someone has to do it.
Someone has to do it, right? So my question for you is like, what is your advice to people who are like, I don't know if I'm ready for holy dishcloths yet. Don't worry, you'll get there. What is your advice for people who are like, I'm ready to start this change, but I don't know where to begin? Like, where would you start if you were starting all over?
Yeah, well, I think that everyone has their come to Jesus moment and the levels, you come with Jesus all different types of ways over the course of your life.
It's true.
But just being like, the initial thought of even like, oh, I shouldn't be shopping at fast fashion places. That's like level 1. Then you have to be like, okay, well, where would I get stuff? Then you have to decide, am I going to go to the thrift store, like the random, just everyday thrift store? Or am I going to go to like Depop or ThreadUp or these different like places where I could get more or shop my closet or something. I don't know. There's so many online things. To me, buying clothes online is the last thing I want to do unless it's like directly from my friend who I like kind of already know, or if it's from a maker. Like I always want my money to go 100% to the person. And of course, with places like Shop Slow or any kind of brick and mortar store that's like carrying independent designers, they need to like make money off of that too, to be able to pay for the place and pay the employees. But for me, kind of the same thing with massage. Like, I don't want to go to a massage parlor and pay like half of that money to the studio. I want to be like, yo, I'll get a massage in your living room. Like, I just want you're doing the massage. I want you to get all the money. And with slow fashion, I'm just like, I want to give the maker the most, all of the money, because I know how much work it is. And so I want them to like get paid as much as they possibly can because I value that. And so anyway, I don't generally buy clothes online because I like to try clothes on, and you absolutely never know what something is going to be like until you're holding it. And so anyway, I mean, people buy clothes online all the time. I'm just saying that one approach could be, you know what, I'm going to look in my town for things, or I'm going to go to like vintage stores or pop-up markets or Renegade Craft Fair or like all these different things. Like, first thing is being like, fast fashion is bad and I need to stop. And for me, what I did, because it is such a like hard thing to be like, well, what? I had this revelation and now what? My whole entire life is different now. Like, I saw this film in 2017 when I was doing research for this event, because I used to do events, like big community events under the name Pussy Powerhouse. Like when Trump was getting in office, I was like, we like need a place to go that we know is like fuck Trump. And I was like, Pussy Powerhouse. And so I did these like edutainment alcohol-free events where we would have a different topic every month, and the topics were always on things that were like quote-unquote taboo in society, like on my period or orgasm or plant medicine or whatever. And so one of them I did about zero waste in early 2018. And so in 2017, when I was doing all my research and like figuring out what I was going to put, because I would do a zine and a photo shoot and a party and like release this whole thing on the topic. It was just a way of me sharing whatever I was interested in the moment, and also making it so the parties were always different and different people could get involved. Because if the theme is different, there's some people who can like participate in different ways, but by changing the theme, then different people got to be on the stage, different people get to have their booth, and it just was a way to let people shine their light in their field, as it were, just to get to know people that might otherwise have been in the audience. And so anyways, I saw a lot of soul-crushing documentaries during that time, and one of them
welcome to my life. Yeah,
exactly. So it was just a different day, a different soul-crushing documentary topic. But this movie was called The Clean Bin Project, and the point it was like a home documentary kind of thing this couple did in the early aughts, and it was about, they did a 1-year challenge and they filmed it and made this documentary, The Clean Bin Project, where they tried to not buy things or create trash for a year. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I would try this. This sounds fun. And a good way to kind of break yourself, because it's a project. It's a temporary thing. I'm not committing to never buying things or creating trash again. I'm just doing this 1-year challenge. And so when I was doing my online online class years after that. I did an online class, which is still up on my Patreon page, and I have some of it on my website. It's called Minimalism for Maximalists, and I made it because that's kind of what I came to by the end of me doing my year of trying not to buy things or create trash. I was like, well, I still love stuff and I still love bright, colorful patterns and all this, but you just don't need that much. Everything you own has to be a 10 out of 10. So as long as you only have really cool stuff, then the volume doesn't matter. It's quality over quantity. And so, and your taste is always going to change. So as long as you're keeping it in circulation, then it's okay. You know, there's so many clothes. I just went through and did an Instagram story sale because I decided that I just want to be more committed to natural fibers and only wearing cotton and linen and stuff like that and getting rid of polyester. Even though I've had many waves of getting rid of polyester, that's what I mean. There's many levels of coming with Jesus. And,
definitely.
And you make your different commitments as you become more available and you realize more and you see the joys of it. And so, people can start by like stopping the flow of clothing in general. And I was like, oh, a year of not buying stuff. That's fine. That means I'm not going to be going to estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores. Unless I needed to get something for a client to make a custom order that was so specific that I didn't already have it in my extremely large hoard of art supplies, only then would I, go to the thrift store to find something. But I was really trying to work down. I sold a lot of art supplies. I sold a lot of stuff because I was like, okay, just because I've accumulated all these things doesn't mean that I'm obligated to wear them for the rest of my life, make art out of them, whatever it was. And so I'm always having sales or selling at the flea market or doing Instagram sales because I don't want to be beholden to these things, but other people want them. And then other people buy things from me and they're so grateful. And they're like, wow, thank you. I love this item. I wear it. It's amazing. And so as long as you are using the things you have, taking care of them, and only buying things that you actually need, and not just buying something because you're sad and like want a dopamine hit. And so you're just going to go on Amazon and say, la-di-da, I don't care who was harmed or died. I want a new sparkly t-shirt. As long as you're, that's why I'm not encouraging everyone go out and just buy a bunch of slow fashion now. Like, yes, buy slow fashion when you need fashion, but don't overconsume. And, you probably also maybe have a bunch of stuff that could become something else. And so a lot of slow fashion people do custom orders. And if you go take the clothes you already have and find a slow fashion designer, find a tailor, take a sewing class, and make things out of the stuff you already have, that is also a way to get into slow fashion, is like really focusing on what is in your closet. And then also, how can I take the best care of that? Or if I don't want it, that's fine. Don't just throw it away. Try and see if you could sell it, number one, because if someone's going to pay money for it, it's the most likely to get used. Number two, donate it to someone directly, some local organization or something, not a corporate chain like Goodwill or the Salvation Army. You know what I mean? Because so many people just default to those big box donation places, which God bless them, we go to them, but see if there's like out of the closet, a queer owned, thrift store where the money goes to AIDS research or something, like, or an animal shelter. If you have blankets or towels or things that are too damaged, or you don't want to make pee rags, or you don't, the towels are just too far gone. There's too many holes. See if an animal shelter wants them.
Definitely.
Just be creative about your redistribution.
Yeah. I mean, I think like one of the things, because obviously I started Clotheshorse, I started to live this slow fashion way of life. Like I had my own come to Jesus, multiple moments really, which, after working a career in fast fashion, the come to Jesus is really brutal. I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
And, I see it as like a constant evolution, right? Like I didn't overnight, just like, it wasn't like I turned on my life and turned it back on. Like it happened gradually. And one thing that is like a pleasant side effect, I would say, of making these changes in my life is that I've actually learned so much, I don't know, life hacks. I hate that term, but I don't know. It's made me smarter and better at things. just that, like, I know now that, like, you can donate towels and blankets to an animal shelter, right? Or, like, I know how to, like, can vegetables from my garden. Like, all these things, you know, that I learned along the way, skills, knowledge, stuff like that, that actually I think is so good for us as humans that we should always be learning constantly, you know? And that's sort of like a pleasant side effect of trying to live the slow fashion way, that you're just always, you're learning how to mend. I had a dress last week. Honestly, I've like cried about it. I took it out of the washer and another dress bled all over it, like black. And I tried soaking it in OxyClean. I tried using rubbing alcohol. I tried using vinegar. It was a pink dress, by the way. So it was heinous. Like I was like, this doesn't work. I got to figure out something. And so I ended up buying that stuff I think it's called Carbona, that like I've never used this before. I used it today. You like put it in a bucket with some hot water. You put the garment in there and you stir it for 1 to 2 minutes, and it removes the overbleed from the other, whatever bled on it. And it worked. It is crazy. I can't believe
How does it know?
I don't know. I will tell you that it did lighten the rest of the dress.
Yeah.
The dress was like a dark pink, and now it's more of a millennial light pink, but I actually like really love it, and now it feels like it's uniquely mine. But it's like, you know, I went down a rabbit hole of learning all these different techniques for removing something that bleeds on your other clothes, and now I not only can like fix that problem in the future for myself, but like I can help other people. And I just love that, because what I could have just done is thrown it in the trash and bought a new dress, right? Plenty of people, that's exactly
you could
what
have
they would have done.
over-dyed it.
Sure, yeah, I could have done that too. But most people, unfortunately, at this point would have been like, well, guess that's going in the trash, right? And
right, they wouldn't even donate it because they'd be like, oh, it has a stain on it. No one's ever going to want it. Instead of like, oh, maybe I'll bring it to a clothing swap, and someone at the clothing swap might know how to do dyeing, and they'll dye it and they'll do something with it. People don't even think, because they don't have maybe the skills or see the potential. They just decide, oh, well, this garment is dead. It belongs to me. I did capitalism to make the money to pay for it, or it was a gift, or however I got it. It's mine. And so I get to decide what happens. And for me, as a person that a lot of the things I have and love are old, which means that multiple people potentially have owned them before me, every object that we have is borrowed. And so the objects in our lives are going to outlive most of us. Some of them might end up in the landfill, but a lot of things are going to just keep staying in circulation like long after we die. Just like all the cool vintage clothes that we find at the thrift store, many different people have owned those clothes, and they've gone to and from the thrift store and a friend's house and sat in a closet and then got worn on the stage and blah, blah, blah. So that's where it's like the obligation to the clothes. You have an obligation to these items when you bring them into your life. Well, they're your responsibility now. They're your little children. And so are you going to neglect your children? Or are you going to let them get mildewy? Like, you know, when it's time to set them free, it's okay. You're always going to have something to wear. But I think that people have this weird fear. And I want to touch on something you said earlier about, people about the towels. You're like, well, I wouldn't want someone to think I was dirty or scummy or poor. And like, that's the whole thing about it, is that people don't want to seem poor, because seeming poor is seen as bad, even though the 1% controls wealth and culture and media and all these things. The 99% of people on earth are poor compared to that. And there's different levels of poor, of course. There's some people that don't even have a old crappy towel, you know, they don't have anything. They don't even have a home. And so that's where everybody's journey and everyone's pace of their journey is going to be different. But to start a journey to slow fashion, which is really just anti-capitalism, and that's why it is political, to like also touch on what you were bringing up earlier. When you choose to not vote for fast fashion with your dollar, you are putting that energy out into the world. And when you wear something that has stains or rips, or that you've made yourself, or that's made out of an upcycled tablecloth and everyone can tell, like, these things, they ripple out in the world. Just like when I started this thing in 2018 of not buying things or creating trash, well, the most hardest part is you're like, how am I going to get food with no packaging? And so it's a completely different way of grocery shopping and going to the farmer's market and bringing your jars and I made cloth bags and embroidered the tear weight on them. I did all this stuff, and then of course the pandemic happened, and then that all just went to shit, and it's really hard to even get things in bulk.
Don't get me started. I'm like, this is something I talk about at least once a week. It makes me so sad. I'm like, bring it back.
But regardless of that, what can we do? Everyone still has the ability to mend their clothes, and textile waste is one of the biggest contributors to the landfill. So that is a huge thing, to stop buying clothes, or to at least stop buying newly manufactured clothes. And if you want to start, if you're a shopaholic and you're like, oh my God, buying clothes is my identity, we'll start with a 3-month fast. See if you can go 3 months without buying anything, any new article of clothing, any accessory, any makeup, any stupid shit that we tell ourselves that we need and that we lie to ourselves and convince ourselves that we are entitled to, regardless of the suffering of others. And when you start to actually think about the suffering of others, then you're like, well, I don't want to fix this shirt. It's annoying. Well, why is that? Is it annoying to make clothes? Yeah, it kind of is. So maybe those people should be paid well for doing a job that you don't even want to do or learn about. And so respecting other people's time, because I've been thinking about this in making these t-shirt dresses that are going to have to be so expensive because they take all day to make one, and I have to hire assistants, and half the money goes to the assistants anyway. I'm just like, is anyone going to buy these? And then I'm like, you know what? Some people are, because I explain the labor, and they see the labor, and they love me, and they love my art, and they want to see me continue to do this. And there are some people that are willing to save money and instead of being like, oh, I'm just going to buy for whatever things on Amazon that are probably going to have toxic chemicals on them anyway and bad working conditions, I'm going to buy this one awesome thing from this artist who I actually admire and respect their values. And so that's the thing about, we get to vote for what we want all the time, because we can decide, I'm actually not going to give fast fashion companies any money. And if everybody decided to do that, then they would go out of business. And so if we don't support small designers because we're saying, oh, it's too expensive, well, what clothes are you going to wear when the factory shut down and you said, oh, the fast fashion is too expensive? You're going to be stuck fixing your fucking clothes. So you might as well start to learn how to do it now.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I agree with all of this. Ultimately, I think that the world and where it is right now and all these systems that are sort of stacked against us can make us as individuals feel like giving up. And I'll tell you, I've been doing Clotheshorse for more than 4 years now, and there are a few responses that come up over and over again. It's like, oh, well, talking about fast fashion is classist, or there's no ethical consumption of capitalism, so I should just give up, or, Amazon has a much bigger imprint than me, so who cares? Just live your best life. And I'm like, nope, and nope.
Except for that I shop on Amazon and I'm literally the imprint.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm like, actually, guys, I get it. There are times where I'm like, why can't the world just be the way that I want it to be and be good and ethical and fair? And why can't it just happen now? Well, unfortunately, that is, we know that. We live in this world, not a reality. But these, what seem like small decisions that we can make every day, actually are a way that we as individuals are making a positive impact and voting for what we want our world to be. And when, sure, one person's doing it, but when a lot of us are doing it, that's when real change happens. And I say that as a person who worked inside the fast fashion industry my entire adult life until a few years ago. And I saw how customers not spending their money with us forced all kinds of change. And it could be as dumb as oh, I guess we should carry festival clothes because we don't have them and people are asking for them. I know, dumb. Don't even get me started. That's a whole episode right there.
Well, no. But I mean, there is something to that. If the customer is asking for something, that's why I always am posting on Instagram, yo, what do you people want? I don't want to make a bunch of stuff that you guys don't even want when I'm trying to sell it to you. Oh, this is what I was going to say earlier about the t-shirt dresses. I was making them. I'm like, oh, this takes so long. Is anyone going to buy this? And then I was thinking about how I always make things that fit me. because I mean, I do make things in different sizes as well, but like, especially when I'm prototyping or experimenting with a new idea, I generally only make things that I would personally wear, because if no one ends up buying them, then I'm stuck with the item and I have to, have it. And if someone does buy it, then great, but they get to have the item. So when you undercut yourself or be like, oh, it's okay, I'll do it for cheaper so that the customer can have a cheaper price, well, then you did all that labor for this other random person that's going to get to have the dress and enjoy the dress. You know what I mean? It's not like you're even getting any benefits out of it. You're not even getting paid well. So what's the point? So that's where I do think it's important for businesses to listen to their customers and hear what they say. But also when I posted about, hey, what do people want me to make? They were like, I want overalls. But then people were also like, I want to pay $150. And I'm like, well, it's not really, you're never going to find overalls that are ethically made and upcycled for less than probably like $250 to $300. So if you want $150, best I can do is a shirt. Like, and so I think that just, it's our job as people that are making slow fashion to post these behind the scenes videos, to have these conversations and to show how long it takes and what the steps are, because how else would people ever know? And so I think that, yeah, we have to work with the customers, because if we don't have customers and we're not pleasing them, then we don't have a business. And if the customers have no idea why this stuff is so expensive, they're going to be, oh, this is overpriced crap. And I'm like, no, really, the other stuff is underpriced crap. And people are like having harm caused to them for these clothes that are not even that good.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not even that good.
That's the worst part.
Yeah, it's the worst part. They're bad clothes that people suffered for, that people don't even want to wear after we've worn them a few times. Sometimes they're not even repairable. And it's just like all this work and suffering and hardship to create garbage, right? Near-term garbage. And it's a sad story all around. And like, once again, like, there are a million ways in which we as individuals can fight back against this. And one is just like not buying it, because I've seen how within the industry, what our customers will or will not buy determines what we make. And unfortunately, as a person who saw fast fashion become the predominant business model for making clothing during the span of my career, what I found is that we would push the limit of crappiness to see if our customers would buy it. They would. So we would take it to the next level. It's like give an inch, take a mile kind of thing. It would be like, we were like, people are not going to buy all these polyester clothes. And then they did. So we kept making polyester. And we were like, people will not buy dresses that are unlined. And then they did. So that was how we did it all the time. People are not going to wear stretchy jeans, and then they did. And we kept making them,
Wow. Well, that's like the thing that my most recent come to Jesus moment has been with the polyester clothes, and being like, because I had these dresses that were made out of recycled t-shirts, I wasn't looking at the content of the fabric. I was just looking at the letters on the shirt. And so now I'm having to deal with all these polyester shirts, which I'm like, oh, I won't continue to buy 50/50 poly cotton or any cotton. I won't buy anything moving forward besides cotton or linen or hemp, because that's the only thing that I would actually want to promote. And so as designers and as upcyclers, polyester clothes should have never existed. And unfortunately, they made the best goddamn fabrics because they're very color fast. And people really like them because
they're good eye candy.
Yeah, people are just drawn to the sparkly thing, even if the sparkly thing gives you cancer, honey. The sparkly thing is not worth it. And so that's where it's just like, when you weigh like the scale of, will it give me cancer or will my ass look fly when I'm in my early 20s at the rave? I'm going to go with the linen pants. So, but I'm 36 years old and I'm just now finally being like, I don't want to have any polyester in my wardrobe. But then there's still some things where I'm like, well, but I got to keep that thing. even still, even no matter how many years go by, I'm still like, oh, but I got to keep that. And so, yeah, how do we move forward as designers? Like, we have to at least move forward in integrity. And what you're saying about, oh, we were just making all these polyester clothes, people kept buying them. Like, as business owners, we have to be like, I refuse to do that. I'm not going to meet your demand, customer. I'm going to educate you, and I'm going to explain to you, like, why we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah. No, totally. So the last thing I just wanted to ask you, like, do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom, just something you want everyone to hear you say? Say it now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, my final closing statement would just be for people to take care of the things they already have and to do more clothing swaps where you can always be evolving, because I'm not saying, oh, take care of what you have, don't ever buy anything new, stay locked into the person you are today. No, I'm saying always be evolving, always be willing to reevaluate and to let go of things, and also take responsibility for those things because you brought them into your life. And so think about the earth and ask yourself, what would the earth want me to do? Would the earth want me to throw away this dress that got a little bit stained, or would it want me to put in some effort to fix it, or would it want me to find someone that does dyeing and, do that? And so just think about how you can do the best thing for the earth, because that's going to be the best thing for you.
Amazing life advice right there. You heard it first, everyone. All right. Well, thank you so much, Corinne. I had such a great time talking to you.
Yes, you too. It was a pleasure.
If you're enjoying this episode, then this is a great time to remind you that my work here at Clotheshorse is made possible by the support of listeners like you, just like NPR, and these great small businesses. Please go give them your support. Blank Cass, or Blanket Coats by Cass, is focused on restoring, renewing, and reviving the history held within vintage and heirloom textiles. By embodying the love, craft, and energy that is original to each vintage textile as I transfer it into a new garment, I hope we can reteach ourselves to care for and mend what we have and make it last. Blank Cass lives on Instagram at _Cass, and a website will be launched soon at blankcass.com. Located in Whistler, Canada, Velvet Underground is a velvet jungle full of vintage and secondhand clothing, plants, a vegan cafe, and lots of rad products from other small sustainable businesses. Our mission is to create a brand and community dedicated to promoting self-expression, as well as educating and inspiring a more sustainable and conscious lifestyle, both for the people and the planet. Find us on Instagram at shop_Velvet Underground or online at www.shopvelvetunderground.com. St. Evens is a New York City-based vintage shop that is dedicated to bringing you those special pieces you'll reach for again and again. More than just a store, St. Evens is dedicated to sharing the stories and history behind the garments. 10% of all sales are donated to a different charitable organization each month. New vintage is released every Thursday at wearstevens.com with previews of new pieces and more, brought to you on Instagram at wear_st.evens. That's Wear St. Evens. Country Feedback is a mom and pop record shop in Tarboro, North Carolina. They specialize in used rock, country, and soul, and offer affordable vintage clothing and housewares. Do you have used records you want to sell? Country Feedback wants to buy them. Find us on Instagram at Country Feedback Vintage and Vinyl, or head down east and visit our brick and mortar. All are welcome at this inclusive and family-friendly record shop in the country. Republica Unicornia Yarns, handmade yarn and notions for the color obsessed, made with love and some swearing in fabulous Atlanta, Georgia by head yarn wench Kathleen. Get ready for rainbows with a side of giving a damn. Republica Unicornia is all about making your own magic using small batch, responsibly sourced, hand-dyed yarns and thoughtfully made notions. Slow fashion all the way down and discover the joy of creating your very own beautiful hand-knit, crocheted, or woven pieces. Find us on Instagram at Republica_Unicornia_yarns and at www.republicaunicornia.com. Picnicwear, a slow fashion brand ethically made by hand from vintage and dead stock materials, most notably vintage towels. Founder Danny has worked in the industry as a fashion designer for over 10 years, but started Picnicwear in response to her dissatisfaction with the industry's shortcomings. Picnicwear recently moved to rural North Carolina, where all their sewing and accessories are now designed and cut, but the majority of their sewing is done by skilled garment workers in New York City. Their customers take comfort in knowing that all their sewists are paid well above New York City minimum wage. Picnicwear offers minimal waste and maximum authenticity. Future vintage over future garbage. Cute Little Ruin is an online shop dedicated to providing quality vintage and secondhand clothing, vinyl, and home items in a wide range of styles and price points. If it's ethical and legal, we try to find a home for it. Vintage style with progressive values. Find us on Instagram at Cute Little Ruin. Is there a little bit of Italy in your soul? Are you an enthusiast of pre-loved decor and accessories? Bring vintage Italian style and history into your space with the Pewter Thimble. We source useful and beautiful things and mend them where needed. We also find gorgeous illustrations and make them print-worthy. Tarot cards, tea towels, and hand-picked treasures available to you from the comfort of your own home. Responsibly sourced from across Rome, lovingly renewed by fairly paid artists and artisans, with something for every budget. Discover more at thepewterthimble.com. Deco Denim is a startup based out of San Francisco, and it sells clothing and accessories that are sustainable, gender fluid, size inclusive, and high quality, made to last for years to come. Deco Denim is trying to change the way you think about buying clothes. Founder Sarah Mattis wants to empower people to ask important questions like, where was this made? Was this garment made ethically? Is this fabric made of plastic? Can this garment be upcycled? And if not, can it be recycled? Sign up at decodenim.com to receive $20 off your first purchase. They promise not to spam you and send out no more than 3 emails a month, with 2 of them surrounding education or a personal note from the founder. Again, that's decodenim.com. Thanks to Corinne for spending some time with me. You have no idea how much work guests put into these episodes sometimes. Corinne and I spent 2 hours sweating our butts off, literally. Very hot days, no air conditioning. Corinne is in Texas. We spent all that time recording, sweating, only to have to come back and do another hour of recording a week later, thanks to some massive and very frustrating technical difficulties. Fortunately, I had such an awesome time talking with Corinne that it felt perfectly fun and so great to spend that much time together. I'll be sharing all of the ways you can find Corinne in the show notes, including her upcoming event at Shop Slow in Austin, Texas. The last thing I will say to round out this episode is that community is everything. It's where I find my motivation, my energy, my strength, and my hope. And whether it's by having conversations like this with Corinne, or, hosting a 2-day event in my town, or chatting with y'all in the comments section on a social media post, it all matters to me. Connecting with other people who are passionate about our planet and its people, it's magical. My favorite thing about slow fashion is the other people involved in it. And while sustainable fashion is the domain of brands and big organizations, slow fashion feels like our own thing. It's support, it's care, it's mutual aid, it's encouragement, it's people, it's creativity. It's fun and warm and so unique, and everyone is welcome. The gatekeeping of fashion is not a part of slow fashion. It's for everyone, no matter where they live, the size or age of their bodies, how much money they have, or any other criteria that is often used to keep people out of fashion. Moreover, yes, slow fashion, the community around it, it makes us feel good, but it also actually creates social change. And social change leads to global change. And global change leads to a better future and life for all of us on this planet. So let's keep this going. Let's make slow fashion something that everyone understands, that brings everyone together in a world where everyone feels increasingly isolated. I know that we can do it because we already are. Thanks for listening to another episode of Clotheshorse. Written, researched, edited, hosted, all the things, even the pickles, by me, Amanda Lee McCarty. I say it every episode. If you like what you heard, leave a rating, maybe even review, definitely subscribe, tell your friends, all that stuff. If you'd like to support my work financially, there are many ways you can do that. One is Patreon. You can learn more at patreon.com/clotheshorsepodcast. You can also buy me a Ko-fi. That's linked here in the show notes, also on my website. And Clotheshorse merch, aka iron-ons and stickers with embroidery patterns, coming later this week. It's all in stock and available at clotheshorsepodcast.com. I'll be off next week because I'm finally taking that break. Dustin and I are going to the beach. It's going to be awesome. We're staying in a cute mid-century hotel. I plan on riding my bike so much and reading so many books. It's just 2 days, but I'm really looking to recharge myself. And I'll be back the week after that, and we're going to talk all about thrifting. Lastly, but never leastly, thanks to Justin Travis White for our music, our audio support, for moving that fruit wall like 100 times, and for helping me, pack up these merch orders every week. All right, bye everyone.